we're gonna cheat with some movie magic. Got that.
What movie magic are we cheating with?
Editing.
I'm really good at that movie magic. Also, really glad I caught that on film. It's gonna be a great intro. You're so good at this. Christo friends, welcome back to Opus Elenae, where we make booze now, apparently. Today we are going to be making a mead that has herbs and spices in it, which is technically called a Metheglin.
Correct.
Let's go get some honey.
Once they determine that it's a good day to go out and forage, then they'll come back to the hive, they'll share information with the other bees, and they'll all go out and start foraging.
We're just going to go through the process of making a rosemary-lavender Metheglin.
When you asked me about making mead, and I kind of know your flavor preferences, I think you suggested this one.
Yes, but I was very surprised that you actually had a recipe for it.
I did, because I looked in this book, which is Making Wild Wines and Meads by Patty Vargas and Rich Gulling. It's a book I've had for many years. But I actually had a recipe for a rosemary-lavender Metheglin.
It's like they wrote this book for me.
We're going to go off script from the recipe a little bit. They add a lot of things that I don't think are totally necessary, being like pectic enzyme, Hampton tablets, which is like a sulfite. And this is something you put in your must before you add the yeast, and you let it sit for 24 hours so it kind of degasses some of that sulfite.
I'm going to ask you to go back and define what is a must.
A must is to winemaking what a wort is to beer making.
Okay.
It is the unfermented solution of ingredients.
Gotcha. Always good to define our terms.
Yes. I recommend the book. It's got a lot of good options in there for mead and winemaking.
How period accurate is any of this?
Mead making is very period. It goes back to one of the earliest fermentations. There are...
Because we have references from not only the Vikings, but earlier than that, Egypt and Babylonians and stuff.
Origins of brewing go back to pre-recorded time. Basically, all the process of fermenting is taking a fermentable sugar source, be it honey or grapes or even grain, and fermenting that sugar with yeast.
Do we have any recipes that go back to what we might consider period?
The most notable ones I'm familiar with would be the Digby recipes.
For SCA purposes, period is considered pre-1600. So that's kind of my frame of reference when I'm talking about, is this period or is this not period?
Right. What we're going to do first, there's going to be 3 steps to what we're going to do. Well, what you're going to do.
What I'm going to do. You're going to help me.
You wanted to learn how to do. So I'm going to let you do the work.
I have made a mistake.
The first thing we want to do is proof the yeast. And that's to start it in what's called a yeast starter.
Right, like bread making.
Like bread making, exactly.
Before we started any of this, we spent a lot of time making sure that we had sanitized and cleaned everything around here, because we only want the bacteria that we are purposefully putting in to be the thing that colonizes. Because if you don't do this properly and you don't sanitize everything, you can get some really harmful bacteria being propagated in these things. So we want to make sure that everything is really clean and sanitized.
So first what we want to do is pour about 1.5 cups of orange juice into our sanitized measuring glass. Or even just a cup is enough, really.
Okay, I'll do a cup.
So what this does is provides the yeast with a both sugar environment and a slightly acidic environment. Now what we want to do is we want to bring this up to just above room temperature. I keep it in the 85-ish range.
Okay.
So we're just going to microwave it.
All right, so we've got that up to about 92, 93 degrees, somewhere in there.
Yep, that'll cool down in a minute. We'll be stirring it a little bit as well. So to that, we want to give the yeast a little boost, something to really latch onto and get going. So we're going to add a little yeast nutrient.
Obviously, this is not a period ingredient.
Correct, but they may have used similar components like adding spent yeast for those yeast hulls.
Okay, and just add it in there?
Just add that in and stir it in real good.
Okay.
The last thing we're going to add is our yeast.
And we have the yeast right here?
Yeah.
Yes.
And this is a half packet because for a single gallon, you don't really need a full packet of yeast.
Okay.
Anything really up to 2 gallons, you can get away with half a packet of yeast.
Talk to me about kinds of yeast, because this is not the same kind of yeast that you get at the grocery store for bread making. There are different strains, right?
There are different strains, and there are a number of strains particularly useful for brewing. Different yeast strains have different characteristics to them. And different yeasts also have different alcohol tolerances.
Okay.
So if you want to make a very potent mead, you would want a champagne yeast, which gets up in the range of 18% alcohol by volume.
We'll have a good time at the next event.
This also is impacted by how much sugar is starting in your must. Adding more yeast does not result in a stronger alcohol, because when the alcohol percentage reaches a certain point, the yeast will go dormant and shut down. This is one of my favorite yeasts. It produces a good range.
Okay, so just put it in there?
Yep.
Okay.
And then stir it in real good. And I actually have had some yeast that was in my refrigerator for considerable time. Yeah, and you want to thwack your packet.
Is that a technical term?
It is a technical term.
Can't take you anywhere. People, why don't you have your partner on the videos more often? We love to see more of your partner. It's because I can't take him anywhere.
And now we will wait an hour for that to proof and come back to part 2.
All right, see you in an hour. 1 hour later.
I'm laughing because I was thinking the same thing.
Okay, what's next?
Next thing we want to do is, I've got a little strainer basket that I wanted to kind of experiment with for all of the additives that we're putting in. When it comes time to rack, it won't be sucking up all these loose things into the autosiphon.
And racking is the process of taking it out of the bucket and putting it into bottles or something else.
Or something else, yeah. So we're going to go ahead and make our little herbal pot. We're going to start with half a cup of fresh rosemary. Yeah, I like rosemary.
It's like one of my favorite scents.
And then we'll want a 1/4 cup of the lavender flowers.
Okay.
Which you have.
You want to make sure that whatever lavender you do get is food grade, because there are more than one grade out there.
I never realized that.
Yep.
All right, next up we want 2 teaspoons of lemon zest. And I figure you could just throw a couple lemon peels in there.
Good thing we sanitized the counter.
Yep.
Right. I anticipated you.
So next thing is we want 1/8 of a teaspoon of ground cardamom, which I have here.
Good.
Again, it doesn't need to be exact. And then 2 teaspoons of hibiscus flower.
I think 2 blossoms is going to be about 2 teaspoons.
Okay, you want to crush those up a bit?
Now crush them up just a little bit, just enough to kind of break the blossoms apart a little bit, but not to make them dusty, grind them completely.
All right, so that is our inclusion items.
Okay.
So we can cap that and set that aside.
Okay.
So the next thing we want to do is go ahead and start the mead base.
Okay.
And the recipe calls for 3 pounds of honey for a gallon. We're going to start by filling just the honey and water to that 1 gallon line, Then we'll take a specific gravity reading.
So talk to me about what specific gravity means.
Okay, specific gravity in brewing is effectively how much fermentable sugar we're adding to the must.
Okay.
We're looking for something in the neighborhood of 14%. So specific gravity corresponds to potential alcohol by volume.
Gotcha.
When you take an initial reading with all the sugar in, you get your starting gravity reading.
Mm-hmm.
After it's fermented all the alcohol it's going to, you take a secondary reading. And the difference between those two readings is how much alcohol by volume you have. So we want this to be a little sweet, but not super sweet or super dry. We're going to start the must in a neighborhood of 1.1, which is about the 13 to 14% range.
So I have procured some honey from a local vendor, a vendor who is local to the Austin area. This is Round Rock Honey. I'm always really glad to purchase from local vendors or, you know, small businesses that I can support more directly rather than getting something from, you know, Jeff Bezos. All right, so honey just goes in there?
Honey goes in there.
All right.
Then what we'll do is we'll heat up some water to rinse out the bottle, make sure we get all the honey out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And
Oh, I just startled myself. I was like, oh God, there's something in here. It's the lemon zest.
I've got bottled water because I don't know what is in my tap water. So I just go with bottled water. Just fill this up to 4 cups.
All right.
And this is just to help the honey mix into the water. Oh, where should we go?
That's what I was thinking.
Great big spoon for stirring. I've had plastic spoons. They break if you're not careful. And it's okay at this stage to aerate the must. The yeast actually need that oxygen initially.
All right, I think that's pretty well dissolved.
The other thing we want to add is tannin. Tannin will give it a little bit of astringency and it kind of changes the mouthfeel in alcohol. One of the things we're doing different from the recipe, which actually called for a 1/4 teaspoon of tannin, is we're going to input our tannins from tea. And this is just black tea, and we're going to pour that into our must to kind of give it that astringency.
Entirely on brand.
Yes. And now we want to pitch our yeast in and take a gravity reading.
All right, so just toss that on in here.
Yep.
And then water to the 1 gallon line?
Water to the 1 gallon line, which we've marked here. You can kind of see the shadow.
Yes.
I can see it through the.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, and then stir it up again real good.
Okay.
And what we want to do now is take a specific gravity reading. And we're going to do that using a hydrometer.
Okay.
And the way a hydrometer works is the density of the liquid will cause this to float. The more dense the liquid, the higher it'll float. As the sugar is converted to alcohol, alcohol is less dense than water.
Mm-hmm.
It will slowly sink over time when we take our next reading.
Oh, okay.
And right now we're over 1.10.
Okay.
So we want it to be somewhere a little closer to 1.10. So we're going to add this back, and we'll add more of that gallon of water. Let's start by doing half of what's left. Call that 3.
Yeah.
So
With
we're,
the tension?
yeah, 1.093. What we want to do now is, before we put that in, we want to aerate this and get that yeast really distributed in there.
Okay.
And I'll do this part because it's over a gallon of stuff in there.
I don't know, my arms are strong enough.
That. Our must is aerated.
Okay.
See, it's all foamy.
It's all foamy.
And now we just want to toss in our container.
Okay.
Right, then we seal it back up. And the last thing we do is we put it in an airlock.
What is the purpose of the airlock?
The airlock will let the gases escape while not letting any contaminants into your container. So now we just let it sit, and in about 2 weeks we'll come back and take the herbal components out.
Okay.
So now we wait.
All right. See you in 2 weeks.
So it's been 2 weeks, and we're back again.
Yes.
We have the primary fermentation bucket. I've got it on top of another bucket because we're planning to rack into a secondary. But we're gonna rack it into a glass jar that we've got here.
All of these things have been cleaned and sanitized.
The only thing we didn't sanitize really was the sampling glass that we're gonna taste.
I'm really excited to taste this.
First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna take the little container that we made up of the herbs and flowers out. Ooh, we can smell
Oh, that smells so good.
it. It actually smells lovely.
Yeah, it's got this really nice, I mean, obviously it smells like honey and herbs, but it has that, the yeast gives it a nice depth, and like it doesn't smell sharp like some alcohols do.
Yeah.
So it is floating.
It is floating.
But if you will remember, and I'll probably put an inset, thing here, but if you'll remember, the last time that we took this specific gravity, this floated much higher over the surface of this, and that definitely means that the specific gravity is down a lot.
And it has gone dry, as I suspected. I said it's 0.996.
This is going to be an interesting tasting today.
It is. All right, so now we want to taste it, and we're probably going to want to put more sugar in to bring it out of the dry.
Right.
And maybe bring our alcohol up a little bit as well.
Right. Okay, here we go. I mean, it smells so good, though. Ooh. Yep, that's dry. Oh, good, though. Very lemony. I taste that rosemary. And the lavender is there kind of on the back end, but it doesn't taste soapy or anything like that.
And that's the problem I have with a lot of florals, is they just taste soapy to me.
Oh,
but I think the tannin from the tea, because we put some black tea in here,
right,
and the citrus from the lemon is gonna take away all the soapiness.
I think so too. And hibiscus is a sweet floral flavor, so that's gonna add just a hint of like sweetness and add to the citrus a little bit. Right?
Yeah, it's so dry I'm not tasting honey much. A little bit.
Very.
It's not honey forward.
I taste it the most on the very like aftertaste, the back end with the lavender. I think the honey gives it like a little softness there, but it's not sweet at all. So I think a lot of that honey flavor gets lost because we associate honey with sweet.
Yes.
I really like that.
Yes, you do.
Yes, I do. That was very kind. That was very diplomatic. Good job.
I'm not. This is not a drink that I would go to, but I knew it would be a drink that you would go to, and I think like maybe this in like a spritzer on a hot summer day.
Yeah.
I think we want to bring the sweetness with a little more honey, bring a little more honey forward, to help balance that. There's a bit of a bite with that lemon and tannin astringency, but the rosemary definitely comes forward. So let me do some quick math and figure out how much honey I think we're going to want to add to this.
Okay.
Okay? We are going to add 8 ounces of honey.
This is incredibly technical.
Yeah. Okay.
We are measuring this out by weight.
Correct.
Okay.
So we used all your honey,
We did.
but I have more. So we're going to add our honey right to our jar. This is going to be our secondary vessel.
And it's okay that it ferments a little bit more in here.
Yes.
Okay. Because this lid has a space for an airlock, so we'll just put the airlock in there. Perfect.
There's 8 ounces of honey.
So in the grand scheme of things, like 8 ounces of honey is not a lot. You can see at the very bottom.
So what we want to do now is rack from the primary bucket to our secondary jar.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're expecting it to ferment some more, I'm not going to be worried about siphoning off some of the lees because there's yeast nutrient in the lees.
Right, and the lees are the leftover sediment
Right.
and everything at the bottom.
So we're going to use an auto siphon.
Nice. Okay. So, and this works by...
So it will draw the mead up into the large chamber,
Mm-hmm.
and it doesn't let it back down. So when you push down, it forces it up the tube
Okay.
and down into the jar.
That's
and so
cool.
we've got a height difference because gravity is what lets it flow through. And keep it nice and low.
Such a nice color too. I mean, it looks like tea.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like bourbon. Oh, I'm starting to see that sediment. Looks like sand.
Okay, so I'm going to stop it right there. I don't want to get too high up because if it does start to ferment and foam up again, we don't want to blow foam into our airlock. Very carefully, we want to incorporate that honey.
Yeah, you can see it's kind of a, well, I don't know if you can see it, but it's a darker, like there's a dark striation at the bottom.
Okay. So without disturbing the top too much, we want to stir all that into the solution. Good catch.
It's like I've been a mom with a toddler. And it definitely, this is very like seasonal. It feels very witch's brew to me. Well, it looks pretty incorporated.
Okay.
I'm not seeing any. I was seeing honey, like just little bits of it when I was scooping, and I don't see any more.
All right, and we'll put our freshened airlock and lid on. And now we let it sit for however long we're patient enough to let it sit.
Cool.
So yeah, we'll put the label back on it and put it with my other little 1 gallon batch over there. We'll come back in like a month or so and
Perfect.
give it a sample taste, see where it's at.
This is gonna be really good by like Christmas.
Yeah, hope so.
Oh yeah.
So we'll come back in a month.
All right, I'm gonna go finish this.
Okay.
Thank you to all of my current and continuing coffee members. Your support and the support of all of my members and croissants makes it easier to do what I do and to provide quality content for everyone. Thank you so much. Stick around after this brief commercial break to see the final tasting and bottling.
Oh, we're back.
We are back.
It has been how many days?
57 days since the last time we made an adjustment to the mead.
Right. This is not a quick process. So we've got the mead here. I don't know if you can see it through, but it is this really lovely sort of deep garnet color, and everything is kind of clarified. All the sediment's fallen out. So today we are going to do our final taste and see if it is ready to be bottled.
Or see if we need to make any adjustments to it. If you want a little sweeter. Of course, anything we adjust to it now,
I'll have to wait.
we'll have to. Although we're filling Grolsch style bottles, the swing top bottles.
Mm-hmm.
So if it did start fermenting again, these will self-burp,
Oh,
so they won't become bottle bombs.
yeah, I don't want my mead to explode.
No. The first thing we want to do is we'll take a taste, and then we'll take a gravity reading to see what our final gravity is like.
Sounds great. All right, taste for you.
Taste for me.
And a taste for me.
Put that back on. Yep.
All right,
Cheers.
Slancha. Oh yeah, that's drinkable. It's very heavy on the rosemary flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And I can taste like the notes of black tea in there. I think that really comes through in like that tannic bite, but it's not so tannic that it makes, my eyeballs dry out.
Right, it's not a super pucker,
Mm-mm.
but it definitely dries the tongue a little bit.
Yeah. This would not be something that I would drink as like a dessert mead. This is definitely a pour out myself a little cup, maybe by the campfire, and sip while my friends are telling stories and singing.
Mm-hmm. It definitely
Something
has
like that.
It has the herbal notes that you like.
I do like that.
I'm not a super big fan of the herbally, but it's not bad. I would drink it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that this was made for you.
Mm-hmm. I can't have any more.
I think this would be good with paired with something like fatty.
Yeah, I was thinking something like a really creamy cheese.
Something really rich to help cut that richness.
This would be a really good charcuterie board pair.
Yeah.
Or really creamy brie cheeses, and then salami or something, another rich.
Yeah.
Yeah. Success!
I don't think we need to adjust it.
No, I like it as is. I don't. I'm not just saying that because I want to drink my mead and not wait anymore.
So let's go ahead and take a hydrometer reading, and then we can calculate out the final gravity. It's really nice and clear, beautiful color.
It's so pretty. In the smaller container, it looks like amber.
All right. Now, because my eyes are old, I do a little trick with my phone camera that I can zoom right in there. All right, so we are at 0.998, so we're below 1, so it is definitely dry.
Definitely dry.
Which, tasting it, was definitely dry.
Mm-hmm.
So what I find in drier meads is the longer you let them age,
Mm-hmm.
the less sharp dryness you'll have. So I think this will age over some
Mellow
time.
a bit.
So you might want to mark a bottle to save for a year and revisit it and see how it is.
Yeah.
But it's certainly drinkable.
Can make another batch in a year and compare them.
Yeah. All right. So now we want to go ahead and bottle it. So we will raise this up in elevation
Okay.
very carefully so as not stir. And we've got a number of swing top style bottles, and these are 500 milliliter.
Mhm.
It's a good amount for one person, and if you're going to share them, and this is really better for a two-person job, I think. You kind of have to coordinate two different things. Somebody needs to keep the siphon up off the bottom, and somebody uses the bottle wand, which has this little springy tip. When you put it in the bottle, you push it down, and it'll start flowing. And when it just comes up to almost the top, you can just lift up, and it'll stop, and then you can slowly withdraw the wand.
Okay.
Yeah, keep it pushed in for now.
Yeah, it just slipped. It's going. A little more.
That's good. Perfect.
And putting them in these brown bottles is a conscious decision, right?
Partly, it's better to keep your alcohols out of direct sunlight, and these amber bottles help with that. I generally keep them in a closet anyway, so they don't get light.
Not everybody has as much storage space as you do.
Right, but these bottles were gifted by a friend of ours, Rafna.
Who runs the Ravens Table YouTube channel about period games. You should go check it out, link in the description. It's funny because you look at the jug and it doesn't look like it's gonna be that much, but this is the 5th bottle. A little bit left.
Okay, let's just
I'll put the rest in there.
put the rest in there and you can drink
Okay.
it tonight.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really good.
Yeah. That's really pretty.
It is pretty. It's a really pretty color. So there is your first bottle mead.
I'm so happy. It came out so well. I'm really pleased, especially because I feel like, as I often do, I kind of jumped in the deep end as far as recipes went. I didn't want to start with just a regular plain mead or something that was easy. I picked an herbal mead,
But I mean, even that just shows you it's not hard.
It really wasn't. It really wasn't hard at all. I think probably the hardest thing about it was getting the supplies. And I was really lucky that as a brewer, you already had most of the stuff. So I didn't have any outlay for the bottles, the equipment, or anything like that. And I think that could probably be more of a stumbling block for people.
If you go on eBay or Facebook, you'll often find brewers getting out of the brewing game or upgrading, and so you can find things on the cheap.
And I think, honestly, if this is a thing that people are interested in getting involved with, this is a place where your local chapter of the SCA could be helpful as well, because there usually are brewers. That's how I met all of the people I know who brew, is through the SCA. And generally speaking, everybody there is really keen to teach. So if you say, I want to learn how to make mead, but I don't know how, there's usually somebody in any given group that's like, hey, come on over and we'll make this mead and I'll walk you through everything.
In fact, the person who taught me how to make mead, Derek, was from the SCA. and I have since taught mead making in the SCA, so we pass it along.
If you're interested in recreating this mead for yourself, I will also make sure that the recipe is in the description.
We can do that.
All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, friends.